So in today's video, we are going to learn how to create effects tokens in Figma. And if you work in Figma, you probably notice the effects panel. It's on the right side. If you can see this one, we have different types of effects that Figma provides us, like inner shadow, drop shadow, layer blur, and background blur. So if I talk about a bit about effects, so effects is like effect basically might sound simple, but they are actually one of the most powerful way to add depth, focus, and hierarchy to your design. And in today's video, we are going to learn how to use AI to give that whole structure of like how we can create tokens, how we can use the naming convention to create a drop shadow and inner shadow in this video. And in the future video, we are also going to learn how we can create tokens for layer blur and background blur. So in this, you might face this problem like as we face in terms of color, like in colors also. When we are working on some project, we create tokens just for our ease, right? So initially, if we talk about a simple color, if white color, then we have a color code of 6 time of 000, and this is for black. And if we talk about for white, this is a white color code. So it's very hard to remember this code every time we are building a website. And to maintain the consistency, we have to create a token out of it that is easy to remember and easily we can modify in terms of like when we design tokens, it's very easy to modify and that basically also maintain the consistency in all over the design. The same for we are going to create the drop shadow. So I already added a script. I already added a prompt for that. So in this prompt, I have written I'm creating a design system token for a brand, focusing on foundational elements. So these are basically the foundation element like color, typography, and icons. So these are just the foundation elements. So specifically elevation, or I just also add a shadow for that because it's easy to understand in the Figma tool. Figma tool I have written because it's for ChatGPT. It's very easy to see like what are the things that I actually want, right? So review the global design system guidelines used by major companies like these companies and create a table that include X, Y, blur, spread, color, values, and the usage also clearly separated for inner and outer shadows because I want two different shadows. So I just write it over here like inner and outer shadows. And because I want it in a table format because at last I have to create in over here I have to create the token. So I want X, Y, and blur value. So that's why I ask for it, and having a different variations because I'm creating these tokens, so I want different elevations in terms of naming convention. I use these kinds of things like elevation 1 and elevation 2. So I just make a small change over here, like because if I add these brands names, so they just review only these brands. So I just wanted to remove it. So you just see the overall design system. So review the global design system guidelines used by major companies. I just remove it for now. Review the global design system guidelines and create a table that include these kinds of things. Of course, they take some data from global design systems only, but yeah, like I just remove it. So let's see what's the result this give to us. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so you can see the data I'm getting is like elevation level. So these are basically the naming convention that is globally recognized, and you can even make it like shadow also, shadow 1, shadow 2, shadow 3. But yeah, this is good. Like elevation 1 is better to pronunciation also. Okay, so sorry, I just drop out from my internet. Yeah, so I'm back. Elevation type, so we have elevation type and we have shadow type because initially I mentioned it like I want the inner shadow and outer shadow because we are going to create two different type of shadows, and accordingly they give me X offset, Y offset, blur radius, spread radius, color, and the usage, like where I can use these things because shadows we basically used sometimes we use for buttons, sometimes we use for sidebar, and sometimes we also used it in terms of hover, right? So they give me a total of 5 elevations, and this is, I'm not saying this is to be very perfect, right? You can use it. So in this video, I'm just wanted to explain like how we can create the token. So that's why I'm just taking the help of AI. Like at last, you have to think about your brand, like what are the colors and what is the actual feel that you want, right? So in this video, I'll just show you like how we can create it. So we'll just take this data for now, outer. So for that, I just rename it to our elevation part, and we can just name it elevation token, and we'll just create the first variable because in this we are basically working on numbers, like this is the number, this is the number. So what we take first, we'll take a number in number because we have to differentiate it into two different categories, like outer shadow and inner shadow. So we have to name it like this. So we just name it in this format, outer shadow, and we have to press a slash backslash. That basically makes it a different category in this, right? Elevation 1. So if I press the enter, you can see this will create a complete different category, outer shadow, elevation 1. Right. In elevation 1 also, I want is to be a different category for that, right? Because in this, if you can see in elevation 1 also, I have outer, elevation 2 in outer, that also comes in outer shadow, right? So that's why I just add it over here, backslash, and I just press a X. So now you can see I can create different elevation in basically outer shadow, right? So in this, I want four different values, like five different values to be precise, like X, Y, blur, and spread radius. So I just quickly make it. I can press shift and enter to duplicate this, right? So I just Y, and then we have a blur radius and a spread radius. So I just named it as blur, and this is basically spread radius. So if you follow me, you can just make this half and half side of window, and you can also experiment it. Like, and if you face any problem, you can just pause it, and you can just again work on it. Right? You can just add a color. So color, they are basically giving in RGBA. So you can even call this thing, like if you want this to be very precise, like in terms of this, you can call it as a hex value. So they just give you the numbers. Right? But for me, it's perfect. So I just go with RGBA color. I just switch to RGBA, and here they're giving 00 and 0.02. So I just make it 0, 0, 0, and 0.12. 0.12, okay. So you can also add a usage, because it's very important when you work for a brand. They also ask you like where I'm going to use this elevation, right? You have to tell like this is the usage for this, for small elements like buttons and inputs, right? So I just copy this part also, because that's a very important part. And you can see like this is ready, like you can start using it, right? So this is our first token I've created. So I just change the value for now. This is 1. This is going to be, okay, this is going to be your 2 pixels. Blur is 2 pixels and spread radius is 0. Okay, so this is the elevation 1 we have created. Now we'll just duplicate this one for our ease, and we also duplicate it 5 times, because they give us 5 different duplication, 5 different elevations. So if I see like for elevation 2 we have 0, 2, 4, 0, 0, 2, 4, 0, and we have this as 0.16. So if you want to know about the depth of this, like why we are writing this, why as a 2 and why we are adding as a blur as a 4, right? Why we are not going to 6. So because that also comes from a logical part. If you want to go into depth, I just post down some I just add some articles regarding that in the comment section, because that also comes from a logic, like this is a multiple of 2 or something like that. But yeah, I just mention it in the comments, so you can also know a bit about it, right? So I just quickly just 240, 24240, and this is your uh, 0.6. Right, in elevation 3 we want it to be 048 and 0.16, 048, and you also got something like it's a kind of multiple of their last digit, right? It's a kind of we have 4 on the y-axis, and on the blur we just multiply 2. But yeah, they again, I just say like I just shared an article that basically define in a more detailed way like how this number changes, right? Then we have a 0.02, and elevation 5 we want is to be 12 and 24, 12 and 24, and we want it to be 0.02. So again, again, it goes beyond. If you are going to work on different themes, if you're going to work on light and dark mode themes, then again you have to make it like this elevation 1, or you can just define it here and just make it like this. So because in elevation, because in when you go for a different theme, like in dark mode and light mode, you have to use a different color over here, right? So accordingly, you have to create a different category for the light mode and as well as for the dark mode, right? So this is ready for the elevation of outer radius, and simply we just need to duplicate this group, and we just named it as inner shadow, and we just quickly add the values, and then we just jump into this part, like how I can add this to the actual tokens. Right, so this is 0, 1, 2, and it is quite similar, I would say. So we're just making it as a 0.80. That's the only change we are doing now, 0.08. Okay, and this is also same, I think, as 24, and this is 0.010. Okay, and elevation 3, we are going for inner shadow, and we have 0.12. Yeah, it's the same. Then we have elevation 4, and inner is 0.14. So yeah, just change it. And for elevation 5, we have 0.16. So yeah, we just change it to 0.16. Yeah. So now you can see like this, these all shadows are ready, like outer shadow and inner shadows. Now it's a time to apply it, right? So to apply it, we have to just take a random rectangle. It's not like we are going to define on top of it. We just take example of it, right? So for that, we have to start from the base. So from here, from this icon, you can see like apply styles. You have to click on it. And initially we have by default. So yeah, like we can remove it from the assets library if we don't want this. So, okay, just give me a moment. I just remove it. Yeah. So now we don't have anything. And we have to create our effects for that, right? And I would say in inner shadows and outer shadows or any type of shadows, it's very important because for a brand, it's very important when people recognize like I'm going to click on a button or it's kind of feedback a customer is getting when he or she is interacting to your product, right? So I just named it elevation and one. Here also I have to create a different categories. For categories, I just have to name it as a drop shadow because that's a drop shadow I'm creating. And it comes under a category because drop shadow is the main category and elevation one is inside of this, right? Then I click on more options and I just click on this properties. For properties, I have to take it from here, like that we already created, and we are going to create a drop shadow for this. I think I named it as outer shadow, or just I just need to change it first for our ease. So we are just naming it as a drop shadow, and this is inner shadow. So I just quickly click on this and click on this outer shadow, and this is the main category. Then backslash and then elevation one, right? And the description part that I'm talking about. So from here you can just copy this part, right? And just paste it over here. So when you're going to publish it, it's very easy for designers who are going to use it, how to use it, like where to use it, right? So in this way, I just click on this and I want to drop shadow. Okay, I think drop shadow, yeah. So now you just click on this and elevation one, it automatically come because you already defined it over there. You just need to click on this and it will automatically add it over here. For blur, I have 2. For spread, I have 0. And for colors, also you can just define this part. And elevation 1 is a color, right? So that's how you already define everything. You just need to add it over here. And once you click on this create a style, you can see like you already created a drop shadow, right? That's how it's already created. Drop shadow elevation 1. Now you can create one more. So to create a one more, you have to click on drop shadow. First, you have to define the category that you want to add, right? Otherwise, it just go blank, right? Elevation 2, you want it to be card component of elevated surface containers. I just add a description. Just click over here, and here I just need to modify this part. I want elevation shadow for elevation 2. Here I just click on this, and just it's a very important step. So you have to be very focused when you are adding value, because if you add a wrong value, then it will not work, right? So you have to be very focused when you are adding this part. So yeah, this is ready. Now I want, so these are the things that and also like it's easy, like when you hover on it, you can see like for a small element like button and inputs, but when you hover on this part, you can see like elevation 2 is going to be used by card components or elevated surface containers, right? Similarly, I just create a drop shadow for elevation third, and again like I just go over here, take this description or usage guideline, paste it over here, I just add it, and quickly I just go to the drop shadow elevation this part, and then I have y, and then I have a blur, and then I have a radius for this, and then I just quickly add it a drop shadow elevation third color, right? And that's how I added elevation third also. And now I quickly just, it's a repetitive step that we are going to follow, but yeah, like to be precise, it must be like you have to focus a lot when you are adding a value, because if you add a wrong value, then you don't see a result, right? So I just add it over here and I just fasten it up a bit. So yeah, so this is the 4-1 and the blur value is this. Then we have a spread radius. Then we have fourth. This is graded. Similar operation we are going to perform for the last elevation, that is the drop shadow 5. And there we are going to add a small description, high level overlays and floating elements. Here you have to click on this. And this you have added X value, this is Y value, this is a blur, this is the spread radius, and this is a color you're going to use, right? So this is ready. So now you can see like from here you can simply add the elevation that you actually want, right? Here you don't see much changes. If I add, okay, I just need to test it because I have added just normal random colors. So you don't see much changes, but yeah, like I just try to add something so it's easy to see. Okay, and I just add a small grayish color. I think that will work. I think so. If I add elevation 4, it's a very thin. I would say we can add some more. So I just show you one thing. So if you go to the local variables, and now if you change something like this is elevation 4, right? So this is elevation 4, and we are using this color, right? If you start using this color and make it like 80%, you can see that this is actually changing over here, right? So that's how it's actually working. You just need to modify the tokens and this will automatically going to change in all over the components, right? I just quickly undo it. And similarly, like you can see the changes, right? Now I'm going to create, similarly, I'm going to create the inner shadow tokens. So for that, you have to first create basically a category for that shadow, and basically same, we just don't deflect it with a different name. We're going to use the same name. We just add a small description to that also. Slightly insert shadow for focus on active states. And we just click on this, add more properties. And here you can see like this is the inner shadow we are going to use. So that's why we have to change it from here. And we just make it like this, inner shadow Y. Then inner shadow of elevation 1, we want this blur, inner shadow spread radius, and this is going to be our inner shadow elevation 1 color. So we just click on create a style. Similarly, we just quickly add. So now you can see like there are two different categories, inner shadow and drop shadow, right? So in this way, you can create two different type of categories. Similarly, we just add inner shadow elevation 2, and we just take out a small description about this. Paste it over here. You want this inner shadow, and we just add a few properties from here. Not properties, basically the variables that we have already added, and we just quickly add it over here. So elevation shadow, inner shadow elevation 2 is also ready. Now we are going to create a inner shadow elevation 3rd. Right, same for this. I just go over here and add a usage guideline for this. Very small usage guideline. You can in ChatGPT you can also add your more context, so they can give you a more detailed description, and that you can use in your documentation process. Right, that totally depends on your prompt style that you are going to give it. Right. So for now, for in this video, like I just make it very simple, like how you can use it. Right. Again, there is totally depend on your brand color schema, like how what color they use, right, and what are the things that they're going to work on, right? So this is basically I just cross named it. So for heavy insert and scissors like this. So yeah, like for your brand, it's totally depend on your brand. If your brand use different colors and different themes based colors, so accordingly you have to create different categories for different themes, and accordingly like it is quite similar like that how we created two different categories, the drop shadow and inner shadow, right? In a similar way, you can create two different categories for light theme and a dark theme, right? So we just quickly create the last, and then we are done with inner shadows. LEVH elevation 5, right? And we can use a small usage for this, right? So you have to click on this button. I think in Figma they have to give something over here like to add a property or button kind of thing, because it's very confusing if you're not able to recognize this. Like, but yeah, okay. So let's just quickly add the fifth elevation part. So I just add a blur, then I just add a spread shadow, and then the last elevation. So yeah, it's ready. Like it's ready to use in your brand, right? So if you see now, you have five different elevations for drop shadow and five different elevations for your inner shadow. So it's very simple, right? In this way, you can also try to add some layer blur or a background blur. You can perform the same operation here. Like you can just similarly, you can create a category for background blur or a layer blur, and this will work in the same way. Like you have to add different. In that, I think in layer blur, there's just one value that you have to add. So you can just call out create a number variable, and it's very simple. And I think it's a very simple in case of layer blur and background blur. So yeah, that's all for this video, and I hope you like this video. If you like, just press the like button. If you have any doubt, just please mention it on the comment. And if you are not a subscriber to this channel, just hit the subscribe button. And yeah, I would love to know your more valuable comments. And in basically in future, I'm going to add some more videos about the tokens, about the design systems, guidelines. So yeah, signing off. Thank you.